Hello, welcome to Tuesday Live. I am Omini Odan. Last week Tuesday, Nigeria kept date with history with the flag off of the $2.8 billion construction of the Ajaokuta Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline project performed by President Muhammadu Buhari. Analysts say the project, which will be in 3 phases, is one that will benefit the country at large, as it will convey gas between the southern and northern parts of the country and eventually extend to North Africa. The benefits include nearly 4,000 megawatts of power, more than 3 million jobs, rapid development of domestic utilization of gas, rejuvenation of moribund textile industries, production of fertilizer, and drastic improvement in the petrochemical industry. The project is expected to be completed in 2023, but what is the role of the private sector in this? How ready are the major beneficiaries in owning the project in order to guard against vandalism of pipeline and sabotage? What are in place to address threats of climate change and explosions? Tonight, we look at the multidimensional economic impact of the Ajaokuta Kaduna-Kano AKK gas pipeline project. But first, this background report by Lydia Sampson. Lydia Sampson's report sets the tone for the program to take off tonight, and we shall be looking at the national economic and dimensional impact of the Ajaokuta Kaduna and Kano gas pipeline project in Nigeria. Well, it's Tuesday Live. At some point, our phone lines will be displayed on the screen. And when we are told to you, please turn down the volume of your television set to avoid the hallback. And in doing this, save time, go straight to the point, make your consent, and our team of guests will address them. Also tonight, you can be part of the conversation through our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA. Tonight, I have the governor of Nasarawa State, Engineer Abdullahi Sule. Engineer Abdullahi Sule is an engineer by profession, a businessman, politician, and entrepreneur. He's an expert in oil and gas and was the former group managing director, Dangote Group. Good to have you on the program tonight.
Thank you very much, sir.
Professor Wum, Chairman and Group Chief Executive Officer, Oil Serve Limited, and Head of Project Consortium. Welcome to the program. Begin. Ajaokuta Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline project. But, Your Excellency, let me begin with you. They have talked so much about the enormity of what this project would do for Nigeria, but we're looking at the other aspect, breaking it down to the economy, diversifying that sector. In your own opening, what will you say is the real benefits of this project economically to the economy?
Okay, thank you very much for having me in the program. Let us first look at the project itself of Ajaokuta. There are 2 issues there. There is the gas pipeline that you are talking about that comes all the way from Delta, coming to Ajaokuta and then proceeds to the northern part of the country. And then there is the Ajaokuta project itself. The Ajaokuta project itself is going to be the foundation for include all the industrialization in Nigeria, because that is our steel project. That is the main project that is going to produce steel for Nigeria. And it started maybe somewhere in the late 90s, and then the idea, as a matter of fact, it started somewhere, even during Shagari's administration, and the whole idea then was to ensure that the project, takes off and produce steel for Nigeria. Then the project was going to use what we call the blast furnace method. The blast furnace produces what you call ingot. From the ingot, you need to produce something else, to go to the steel. And that's why they are using what they call the LD converter, or open heart process. The Russians, at the time, it was USSR. So it was the President of Russia and as well as Ukraine that actually constructed and supplied most of the equipment for the main project itself. Now, outside, what you call most of the infrastructures that are outside, the rails, the roads, the waterways, and the rest of them were going to be built by other contractors. It was successful during the Shagari administration because it was being managed by various ministries. It was interministerial committee that was managing and producing directly, sending directly to the president. Unfortunately, the whole program changed up till 1994 when the Russians decided to leave. They left after installing the blast furnace without commissioning the blast furnace. They already informed the converter, and yet they had not commissioned the converter. Now, unfortunately for us further, Russia and Ukraine are two different countries today. So recently anyway, as late as maybe somewhere around 2004, I think some Indians were brought in. Now in the project itself, you have the main steel production as well as the rolling mill, the finished products. So you have 4 rolling mills in there. When the Indians came in 2004, all they did was to try as much as possible, to see how they could be able to revamp the rolling mills. As well as the main steel project itself, nothing was done. So the Indians did what they could, finish, and then left. So at the end of the day, the main project is still there. But I still tell you that the main industrialization in Nigeria will not happen until a Jakarta steel plant is actually revived. Okay. That is where the whole thing starts. Now, the next project is the gas line that you are talking about. Nigeria is really not an oil country. It is a gas country. I had a similar experience, when I was working in the U.S., when Bolivia was considered an oil country. When the oil finished, then they started going to produce the gas. Sure. And it was from Bolivia, Santa Cruz to be specific, that the first line was built by Enron all the way to Brazil. Second line was built by Shell. I think it's similar to what Nigeria is doing at the moment. Nigeria had over 200 trillion standard cubic feet of gas. Oil is just about 40 billion barrels. So oil will finish sooner or later, but we are going to be left with the gas. So it is better for Nigeria to start finding ways to use its own gas. And I think that's where we are going from. So the gas pipeline that we are talking about is going to be, just like Ajaokuta, the foundation of the entire industrialization of this country. It's going to be the source of producing electricity. It's going to be the source of power. Most of these industries that actually died in places like Kano, if you go to Kano now, most of those industries that were in the 80s and earlier are all dead now because they are now using either gas oil, which we call diesel, and because they can't afford. Some of them are using the fuel oil, which is the LPFO, and they can't afford. So as a result of that, they cannot compete with other countries that are using cheaper, cleaner oil, and that's what gas is all about. So we start from there.
Okay, before I go to Port Harcourt, let me quickly ask you this. This has been conceived years back, but has only come to fruition now. And you ask, why now? Is it about the proactiveness or what?
Well, the economy is actually revolving, and Nigeria cannot continue to live in isolation. The whole world is moving towards clean oil, clean air, clean gas. And gas is actually the right way. If you use fuel oil or gas oil, they actually don't give you the clean air that you are producing. So I think all is looking more and more at health concerns, pollution control and the rest of that. And gas is the right place to go. Secondly, like I told you, Nigeria is beginning to believe now and think and understand that the only way you can produce what is happening and the only way the economy will be driven is we go back and develop our gas. Remember, over 75% of the gas produced in Nigeria used to be flared. Until recently, when Nigeria now started thinking about the injection of the gas in order to produce oil. The LNG product, the LNG projects, the LPG that we are producing to export, and the rest of that. So I think now is the right time because it's the time to help our economy.
Okay, let's go to Port Harcourt where Emeka is joining us via Zoom. Those are the reactions by Nigerians across some parts of the country, and it is still national economic and multinational dimension of the AKK gas pipeline project in Nigeria. Well, before we went on break, concerns were raised in the opening, and very germane concerns, and I'll start that with His Excellency, the Governor of Nasarawa State. Professor Wumi had talked passionately about production capacity and off-taking.
I think what the professor, he spoke like who he is. You know, he is an economist. And if you are going to set up any business, you do your feasibility, you do your analysis, you have to ensure that you have market for the product that you want to sell. And I think it's from that angle that he approached it. And that's why when he was talking about 200 trillion standard cubic feet of gas reserve, he's asking of capacity to produce that. But the question will be, we have 40 billion barrels of oil today. Are we having capacity to produce 40 billion barrels of oil? I don't think it works that way, the way the professor is talking about it now. Coming to gas, nobody says that the Ajaokuta to Kaduna Kano line is going to consume that particular gas. With gas production, the way it works, and that's the way it works in fact everywhere, you know, you will even find gas lines that are built, and then at the end of the day, they are capped. And once there is a customer for it, and there will be, because the moment customers understand, industrialists understand that there is such a line, then definitely it's like water. They go ahead and tap for it. In fact, Lagos today is enjoying the West African gas pipeline. It was not meant for Lagos. It's actually going to the entire West Africa, all the way to Ghana. You know, so at Shagamu, that's where it is teed, and it is taken by GasLink. Before I left Dangote, the company I was running, Dangote Sugar Refinery, was the biggest consumer of that gas. And it's a gas line that actually came all the way going through Ikeja, you know, coming through Apapa, you know, and it ended right there in Dangote Sugar Refinery. And we are consuming roughly about 9 million standard cubic feet, between 9 to 12 every month. And we are the biggest consumers in Lagos. But because of the number of customers that it had, we were not having enough pressure. For that reason, because every small company started tapping and buying the gas. You know, so at the end of the day, they had to build a new line, that is GasLink, called the Western Avenue bypass. You know, and that's the one that comes right through Western Avenue on Ikorodu Road, again coming all the way to Flour Mills of Nigeria and ends up in Dangote Sugar. So now we mention about all these various companies. A lot of companies in the 70s and the 80s in Kaduna. Today they are shut down. Why? Because they can't compete. You know, if we have gas pipelines, some of these companies actually can revitalize. They can come back to life. If you go to Kano, where I have been a lot, you will see several of these companies, they have gone comatose. They have gone dead. Because they can't compete with the clothes and other things that are coming from outside the country. Today, if we have gas, they can use that. They don't have to use the entire gas, you know, but they will use whatever it is that they are going to use out of that. It's cleaner, it's cheaper, it's better, it's more industrious, you know, and it's faster. And that's the reason why, and we have it. The good thing is that we have the gas. So do we want to flare the gas, or we actually want to use it? So, and I think the idea, you know, like the professor is saying, if you are setting up a German factory or something like that, you can think of market. But if you are setting up a gas pipeline, definitely the market automatically will come. It's like if you have power, you wouldn't say that until you have, you know, so amount consumption of so many megawatts before you actually build your transmission lines. Those transmission lines will just go. You know, at the end of the day, you know, people are going to tap from that line, and that's how industrialization comes about.
Before I go to Emeka, you also raised a worry, and the worry is as huge as the benefits of this project will be in the long term. If the economic analysis are not properly factored through the right platforms, it may amount to an elephant project.
No, he mentioned one area, and I didn't think of it until he mentioned it. And let me open up and tell you that area. He said, is it not going to be similar to our line to Kaduna that is not being used? In fact, let me make it worse. Nigeria is connected with depots all over the places. Calabar, Yola, Maiduguri, Enugu, Makodi, Abuja. Coming from Warri, going to Ilorin, coming all the way to Suleja, Gusau, Mina, and the rest of that. Nigeria is all connected with these depots, and it's all finished product, finished, gasoline pipelines. None of them is being used. None.
And they still exist.
They still exist. They still exist.
Can they be revamped?
And that's the reason why you see all these trucks on the road. 250 trucks coming out of Lagos to the northern part of the country. Is because those lines are not being used. And it's similar to the reason why the crude pipeline is not being used. Now, can Nigeria learn from the mistakes of that and correct that? Can we take security measures on all these lines, why they were not being used, and ensure that it does not repeat itself on this kind of thing? I think that's the point the gentleman make, that when he said that, I thought about it, and I think he has a point. But when you are talking about the analysis is that you have a line that is going. It's like a transmission line. You have all these industries that are there. Definitely these industries are going to use gas. They don't have to use everything you pump. They will use only what they need. That's what I'm saying. So you don't say that I must send so cubic meters of gas, therefore they must use that pressure. So I think if you are going to do the analysis in that manner, today you are not going to produce anything to Kano because there are no industries that are already using it. But you project the industries that are going to come, fertilizer companies, because there is going to be a lot of farming. So a company saying that there is gas pipeline is going to set up its fertilizer plant and produce their urea fertilizer right there. I think that's the way, that's my explanation in that one.
Okay, I'll still come to you on other issues. Let me go to Professor Wumi. Ibadan is next.
Gas flaring is
with Abdullahi. Abdullahi, there are a couple of tweets, and I believe without necessarily following to the order, you can pick and react to some. The first one is coming from Jamil. It says, it's a very good project, I beg your pardon, but I think two important issues should be looked at: pipeline safety and massive reservation to serve its purpose when it takes off. The question we'll ask is, Nasarawa State, your state where you are governor, is more like a catchment state to this project. Kano, all that. We ask, are the state governments, your government, Kaduna, Kano, Kogi State, and other catchment states that I can't remember now, ready to be part of this project?
Definitely.
Beginning from you.
Definitely. As somebody who understands the value of this project, I have just explained to you what happened in Lagos. And that was actually confirmed by Emeka. When a gas pipeline was going on its way from Delta, going through Edo, all the way to the West African gas pipeline. And now that line was tapped, going into Lagos. Now that line is generating electricity. That line is also powering turbines and doing so many other things, in that line. So today is similar to that. Even though this line coming from Ajaokuta through Kaduna to Kano does not go directly through Nasarawa, but it's coming very close to Nasarawa. So it's an opportunity for industries actually that can generate power, that can also use these kind of lines, to come and tap, because when someone, I think it was Emeka, no, not Emeka, I think it was Professor, who mentioned that people have to be very careful about vandalizing such a line because of the amount of huge pressure. If you've been to an oil field, on top of the well, you will see what they call Christmas tree. It's actually BOP, it's a blowout preventers. There are times where a blowout preventer actually blows out, and then you will see the pressure that is going. Everybody runs away, no matter who you are. So now we are talking about the same kind of line, that is going through, a line, even though it's just 2 meters deep. The moment anybody comes across that, and wants to tamper with that kind of line, and there are people that will attempt, because in Nigeria we have seen people who are crazy enough to go to a high KV line, to go and see if they could tap electricity or steal some cables and things like that. So it is similar. People will be crazy enough to see if they could tap that kind of gas and maybe change to LPG or things like that. People will come up with all kinds of crazy ideas. So I like what the professor said. It is necessary that we provide a lot of awareness so people understand the danger involved in this. But when it comes to whether the state governors want to do that, definitely. If I go marketing Nasarawa State, to some of these industrialists, major investors that are coming to set up these kinds of industries, that's one of the attractions for Nasarawa State. Nasarawa State has huge market, and that is Abuja. And now we say, okay, we can also produce cheaper because we have this AKK line that is going, and we can tap from it. So a company will be interested in that. So I think for all the governors, it is going to be our idea to go ahead and market this idea and ensure that we attract major industries into our states. And we can also jointly, see how we can produce fertilizer especially. A lot of us now are just having blending plants, for fertilizers, but you can actually produce fertilizer directly from some of these lines. So these are the kind of opportunities that are there.
Now, if this administration came on three planks, security, anti-corruption, and the economy, looking at the economic plank, will you say it's on track?
Definitely on track. Because as I said, this is the bedrock. You pick two items today, anyway, we spend more time on the gas than the steel. But you pick two items that are major when it comes to the economy. The economy of Nigeria will be built mainly on these two major planks. One is going to be the steel production that we are going to have in this country. Next is going to be cheaper means of production. Most of these companies, as I mentioned to you, each time I go to Kano and drive through these streets and see all these abandoned industries, and you begin to ask, why are they down now? Why are they comatose? Everybody will be asking is because they can no longer compete with products that are coming from outside, that are being smuggled. How come those products are coming cheaper all the way to Nigeria? Is because they had cheaper sources of production. And now this is a cheaper source of production. And that's what this is all about.
Okay. Professor Wumi, I know you're worried and concerned from the beginning, and you want to really see this project take off. But before
we're coming, and the present administration
countries. And cutting down. Instead of planting, I think the president promised planting so many millions of trees, just because people cut down trees. So this is an opportunity again for that. So the value chain, that is going to be there. The advantages are enormous.
Okay, I'll still come to you. You have touched briefly on the PPP model. We'll come to that. Okay. Abdullahi, okay, Prof, Your Excellency, in every situation, you always have those who are like doubting Thomases. Like I raised a concern at the beginning of the program, some people are saying this project will go the way of Kaduna Refinery. What will you say to the doubting Thomases?
No, there are two different projects, and that is the reason why there is nothing wrong with Kaduna Refinery. What is the challenge about Kaduna Refinery is the ability to be able to get the crude oil there because of the vandalization of the lines.
Those who are saying that it will still look like the Kaduna Refinery.
They will be proved wrong.
Okay.
They will definitely be proved wrong. Because if you look all around the world, there is no gas pipeline that has not paid for the investment. For all the ones that I have known. I live in Houston for most of my life, and I have seen gas pipelines built to nowhere. Later on, you will go and see that subdivisions, housing estates will just emerge in some of those areas. Industries will come up in those kind of areas. And so at the end of the day, it will pay. It may take us a longer return on investment. We may take longer to be able to benefit from it. A lot of our people, especially here in the north, who believe mistakenly that buying a gas cylinder is more expensive than going to fetch firewood. But when they come to realize that eventually, after a long time, they will benefit more, they will come and do it. So it will take a lot of education, it will take a lot of patience, but at the end of the day, people will see the benefit. So I do not see anywhere, somehow, somewhere, that it will be a failure. Along the line, companies will emerge that are going to start using the gas for different things altogether. There was a gentleman I saw in Kaduna, he probably must be a chemist. He came up with all these various ideas. We'll be able to be producing ethylene, propane, gas, so many things, that he mentioned. So you will see small players actually springing up to build a small gas storage tank in their houses, and then use that gas storage, employ 2 or 3 other people to be using it. Safety is going to be that. We are going to require a lot of education in order for people to understand this. We are going to require a lot of awareness, a lot of sensitization, so a lot of work needs to be done in the area. I wholeheartedly agree with the professor in that area. More work is going to be done, and Nigeria being what it is, we are not likely going to see the return on our investment as quickly as they will see in other countries. But hey, this is Nigeria, it's perfectly understood. And I don't think they are going to look at it from that angle. So, as far as I'm concerned, I think the doubting Thomases are going to be proved wrong by the grace of God.
There's an aspect you touched briefly. Some still view this project as elitists.
Yes, and that is where the education will come in. So a lot of people, a lot of houses that we have are not built for this, for gas utilization. If you look at the middle class, and the first class also, most of their houses are built with gas cookers provision and things like that. Not the kind of houses we have in villages and things like that. But hey, this is not meant for villages for now. It is meant for big cities where it's supposed to be used. So, and I think that's the angle that you have to take it from. Then eventually, the smaller places will begin to see the value in it, begin to see the advantages in it, and begin now to type and buy into it, after they gain the education and everything. But Nigeria is a country that no matter what you say, our education level, our awareness level is still low. So somebody needs to do that work, gradually to get it up there.
Okay. Abdullahi, just a few words from you before we go. Call it a paradigm shift in the history of Nigeria. To Nigerians, what's your last take